Assalamualaikum students, I am Miss Aisha Abid from Army Public School and College Khanewal. Today I welcome you all in our biology lesson for class 8 subject biology week 5th by App6 online support program. Topic is 5 and your teacher is Miss Aisha Abid. Our topic today is environmental hazards related to fertilizers use and components of human food, in which we will be discussing carbohydrates. Objective: we will be able to understand environmental hazards related to fertilizers use and components of human foods, including carbohydrates. Environmental hazards related to fertilizers use. Fertilizers, they, as we know, they are highly soluble. Because of their high solubility, also degrade ecosystem through eutrophication. This is a entire unique term, but we will discuss it and your concept will be clear about eutrophication. Eutrophication increase in chemical nutrients in the ecosystem, especially water bodies, due to massive quantities of inorganic fertilizers. Inorganic fertilizers, we learned about them that they are highly soluble in water. So when they are soluble in water, they will form the layer over the water, which is green in color, and the process is called eutrophication. Those water bodies, they are also affecting our ecosystem. We will discuss and how it is doing so. We will discuss is it in a short time. Eutrophication here, what it is exactly that on the surface of water there is a green color color layer will appear, as you can see here, and due to this green layer, uh, the fish or other living organism which are living underwater, they can die, because this green layer, they prevent the sunlight from reaching out into the air, hence it is preventing oxygen from reaching out into the water. So the fish and other organisms, they will die. The massive quantity of inorganic fertilizers, they affect the soil nutrient holding capacity. As we already know that they increase the soil nutrient holding capacity. Storage and application of some nitrogen fertilizers may cause emission of greenhouse gas called nitrous oxide. Because they are nitrogen fertilizers, they are having nitrogen gas in it, and when they are applied more frequently in the crops, they will cause the release of nitrous oxide in the environment, which is a greenhouse gas. Ammonia gas may also be emitted because it is NH3 and it is containing nitrogen in it. Inorganic fertilizers may also be releasing ammonia in the environment. The extra ammonia can also increase soil acidity. If we apply more fertilizer to the soil, it will increase soil acidity, which is obviously negatively affecting the plant's growth. Excess nitrogen fertilizers may lead to pest problem. When we apply more and more nitrogen fertilizer, pests will regrow there and they will destroy the crops by increasing their reproduction rate. Caution before using fertilizers. For above mentioned reason, it is recommended that the nutrient content of the soil and nutrient requirement of the crop should be calculated before the application of inorganic fertilizers. It means that when we have to apply some fertilizer in our field of, for example, cotton or wheat, whatever it is, we have to first calculate about that if we have a particular amount of particular area in which we are planting our crop, how much fertilizer do we need to apply. We do not have to apply too much fertilizers, because we have learned already that the excess of everything is bad, and excess nitrogen fertilizers, they will be enhancing the growth of pests which are destroying the plants. Obviously, excessive amount of organic fertilizers, which are very complex, they cause environmental problems due to nitrate leaching. Nitrates will be leached out into the soil, they will move into the water beds under the soil or run off the soluble organic compounds. Let's have a look at this video so that you understand the topic very carefully.
Plants require several things to grow. Most of us know that they need things like water, sunlight, and CO2, but plants also need a variety of nutrients as well, things like nitrogen and phosphorus. Usually, plants will get all their required nutrients from the soil through their roots, but when the soil is bad or there's been a lot of erosion or leaching, farmers or even just people trying to make their lawns green will put down something called fertilizer. What makes fertilizer so fertile is that it's been enriched with these nutrients that the plants need, again mostly fixed nitrogen and phosphorus. But plants aren't the best at soaking up every last nutrient in the soil, and it's also hard to gauge just how much fertilizer a field needs, as soil quality can vary drastically over short distances. To be safe, farmers will usually apply excess fertilizer to a given plot of land. Better safe than sorry, you know? But instead of staying in the soil for years, most of the excess nutrients will be carried away by the rain or other forms of irrigation. These nutrients mix with the water and find their way into bodies of water like ponds, lakes, reservoirs, and even the ocean sometimes. With all these nutrients added, the algae, phytoplankton, and even plants in the water do the same thing the crops in the field do. They grow. Well, actually, they explode in numbers. This is called an algal bloom, and entire lakes can become covered in layers of plant growth like this. To some, this might seem like a good thing. Plants are good for the environment, right? Well, not always. First off, this floating layer of algae forms basically an impenetrable roof on the water, not allowing sunlight through to the bottom of the lake. Without the presence of sunlight, all plants below the surface cannot partake in photosynthesis. You know, metabolize, make glucose, live, that sort of stuff. But not even this is the bad part of it all. Many plants can store enough energy in their bodies to wait out these conditions. The real problem comes when all the nutrients are used up and the water can no longer support so much life. When this happens, the excess algae, phytoplankton, and plants die off and sink to the bottom of the body of water. Here, bacteria and other decomposers feast on the dead bodies in a chemical process of decay which consumes oxygen. Now, in a usual ecosystem, the amount of dead matter is relatively constant, so oxygen levels stay relatively constant as well. But when a bloom occurs, far more organic matter is ready to decompose, and so nearly all the oxygen in the water is used in the process of decomposition, and none is left for the animals living in the water. Without this, animals that use the dissolved oxygen to breathe, so things like fish, can actually suffocate. This causes even more death, leading to more decomposition and more oxygen usage. Basically, at this point, a positive feedback loop has been created. It can take a body of water a very long time to recover, though each one is different, and recovery depends on a lot of things, like how many nutrients leaked into the water, how big the body of water is, what organisms are present there, and so on. When this happens in lakes, native species can be suppressed and allow invasives to come in while the environment is still disturbed. If this happens in the ocean, the lack of oxygen can cause corals to bleach and possibly even die. All around, this can greatly damage many ecosystems and leads to a decrease in biodiversity globally. Nutrient-rich runoff can also be caused by things like clear cutting, which releases the nutrients which were kept in the soil by the plants, or also by things like animal farms, where nutrient-rich waste materials can leak into local bodies of water. And that's eutrophication, simply put. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe think.
So that was all for today's lesson. I hope you understand it very clearly. Now we are going to start our new lesson, which is components of human food. The nutritional requirement of human food and other animals are relatively complex as compared to plants. Like other animals, nutrients are used by humans includes carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, minerals, vitamins, water, and nucleic acid. Now have a look at this video to get a brief intro about nutrition.
Have you ever heard the expression, you are what you eat? While you can't take this literally, this simple saying contains a lot of truth. The foods you choose to eat determine which nutrients your body will receive and in what quantities. Nutrients are substances that allow your body to make energy, build and maintain tissue, and regulate bodily processes. If you eat a healthy diet filled with a variety of high-nutrient foods, you are more likely to enjoy good health than if you eat a poor diet that is lacking nutrients. This lesson will provide an overview of nutrition, which is the process of taking nutrients from foods, by looking at the 6 classes of nutrients: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, water, vitamins, and minerals. 3 of these 6 classes of nutrients are referred to as macronutrients because they are required in large quantities. The prefix macro means large, so this is a fairly easy term to remember. The macronutrients are carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. They are somewhat unique because they are the only nutrients that provide your body with energy, which is measured in calories. Of the three macronutrients, your body looks to carbohydrates for quick energy because carbs are readily available when there's an immediate need for energy. All carbohydrates come from food, but different foods contain different types of carbohydrates. For example, when you eat a cookie, you're consuming mostly sugars or simple carbs, whereas your spaghetti dinner contains a lot of starches, which are complex carbs made up of many sugars. Eat fruits and veggies, and you will take in fiber, a type of carbohydrate that cannot be digested.
So that was about intro of human nutrition. Carbohydrates, they are the most common source of energy for all the animals. About 2/3 of the total calories every animal consumes daily are from the carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates? Carbohydrates we get from bread, beans, bananas, different fruits, grapes, etc. Examples: glucose is the most common used carbohydrate for energy. Other useful carbohydrates are maltose, lactose, sucrose, and starch. Energy. Carbohydrates contain 4 kilocalories per gram. Carbohydrates are the source of energy. As we know, protein, lipids, they are very vital building blocks of our body. Sometimes they can also be used as energy. Sources of carbohydrates, as we already discussed, are bread, pastas, beans, potatoes, bran, rice, and cereals. We get carbohydrates from vegetables, fruits, whole grains, bread, seeds, nuts, and different beans. So have a look at this video to get your concepts clear.
Go ahead and think for a moment about your very favorite food. What is it? Pizza, macaroni and cheese, chicken salad, sushi? Well, we all have different food preferences, but food is a source of large molecules that are needed for life called biomolecules. There are 4 major biomolecules that make up all of life, and this will be the focus of this video. Before we get into details about the 4 biomolecules, we need to talk about one very important vocabulary word, the word monomer. A monomer is a building block. If I had some large substance, the parts that make up the substance are called monomers, just like building blocks. We're going to talk a lot about monomers today because we need to understand what the biomolecules are made of. And we need to understand biomolecules because they're building components of life. So let's introduce the 4 biomolecules now and talk a little bit about their functions. We'll start with carbohydrates, carbs. Well, carbs are something that you've probably heard a lot about when people are talking about diets. You know, they try to go low carb, or maybe they want a lot of carbs. Diets always come and go. Pasta and breads are examples of foods heavy in carbohydrates. Carbs are actually a very important source of energy. In fact, that's one big function of carbs. They are a great, fast source of energy. If you are a marathon runner, you might want to eat a lot of carbs the night before a race. Lots of marathon runners do this. It's called pasta loading. They eat a big pasta dinner the night before they go out on their marathon. Now, carbs have a monomer. Again, remember, monomers are building blocks. The monomer for a carb is a monosaccharide. I know that's a big mouthful, but monosaccharides make up carbohydrates.
So let's have a quick recap about what we have learned today. That we learned environmental hazards related to fertilizers use. Then we studied components of human food, including carbohydrates. So that was all for today's lesson. I hope you understand and enjoyed today's lesson very much. Thank you so much for your attention. Allah